What could possibly go wrong in loving families? Well, it did actually. After staying single for a very long time, I met Steve in the most unexpected manner. The moment I got to know him, I knew he was the one I wanted to settle down with. We were loved by all except Eve, my younger sibling whom I loved very much, but that love was not replicated. Steve proposed marriage in the most precious way possible in front of our family and friends, but my sister decided not to show up for the same. I tried talking to her about what went wrong, but she would always dismiss me. I believe that since our childhood, Eve has always been the envious one. Why do I say that? Ever since I can remember, she would always taunt me for scoring good in academics as well as quickly making friends, whereas she had always been average. Our parents would always explain to her that she needs to manage well, but she would always shout back at them and run towards her room and lock herself up. She was never good at maintaining relationships with her friends as well as her boyfriends, which led to all the breakups. You know how as siblings it feels great to be hyped up by one another? Unfortunately, I never felt that with Eve. She would always humiliate me in the worst way possible, making me feel miserable most of the time. Even after all this, I still decided to never leave her side as I knew she needed me. Ever since I can remember, Eve carried a lot of resentment for everything since childhood, and it was so ground-jutted it felt as if she did not seem to appreciate anything. All those academic failures and sabotaging relationships felt like her frustration was always at its peak, which not only affected her but everyone around her. The envious behavior that Eve had always displayed was the main cause for all her relationships to end rapidly. It was pretty obvious that it was not just the academic failure or the social competitiveness that led to this, but also the inadequacy in terms of relationships that she faced or the constant jittering that came from the other person. Whether a friend or a boyfriend, most people would assume that children brought up in a good environment and those who share the same parenting are supposed to reflect healthy upbringing, but that was just not for us. Even though, as the elder one and as someone who has the authority, I always felt miserable in Eve's presence as her behavior and communication was unpredictable. In a socially growing world, where siblings are meant to stand for each other, I never felt supported or loved by my sister. Rather, her envious behavior became a blockade between us. She never left an opportunity to demean me in front of other people, making me believe that I am not good enough and all that I have achieved is nothing as to what she has. And yet, after all that she inflicted upon me, I chose to stand with her in case she needed me for anything, but honestly, it never seemed worthy to me. Steve and we decided to get married in the month of December, in the joyful chaos of Christmas, as it held a special meaning for us. We hadn't met around that time for the very first time, so obviously, it was indeed a very special day to get married. To celebrate our big day, we left no stone unturned. We booked a homogeneous hole in a forested area with a church nearby where we were to get married. All our friends and relatives gathered there a day before our wedding to share our happiness and be a part of it. However, no matter how great everything was going, among all the happy chaos, I was wondering where Eve was. Her absence was noticeable as everyone present was asking our family about Eve. We did not know ourselves. I tried to reach to her through phone calls and text messages, but had no clue about her whereabouts, as it was not very likely of her, as if she had never done this before. After having a healthy and delicious breakfast, it was finally time that I got to see my finalized wedding dress. The day that we had all been waiting for, indeed, a very long time, was finally close. After clearing the breakfast table, I thought of doing one last fitting for my wedding gown before the big day. However, after I got up to the floor of my room, I decided to try on my gown only to find it missing from my wardrobe, to which my heart skipped a beat. Uncertainty cramped my brain as I searched and scanned for it in each and every bag, room, and whatever possible left, but I did not find it anywhere. With a heavy feeling, I rushed through the corridors asking for help as I was hopeful that I might have misplaced it. But one part of my mind kept asking the question, that how can something disappear all of a sudden? Although there was still 2 days to the wedding, I could not accept the fact that my gown was nowhere to be found, not even at the place I expected it to be. I was filled with despair and a feeling of hopelessness. My wedding gown was nowhere to be seen, and I felt like giving up. I felt helpless. I was in a complete dilemma. I did not know what to feel, as I was panicking and excited at the same time. Simultaneously, I could also hear someone shouting and banging on the door from the second floor. It seemed like Steve was screaming at someone, as if 2 people were hitting each other. In a state of panic, I ran towards his room, only to see Steve sitting outside his room, holding onto his forehead as if something terrible had taken place. For what Steve told me had happened, I was left out of words and in a state of shock. I ran to him only to find that Eve barged into his room, convincing him to marry her, that she loved him and she was ready to marry him on the spot. Steve also told me that Eve was wearing my wedding dress, which explained why I could not find it in the first place. Eve tried to seduce Steve by trying to get close to him, but he pushed her away, rushing out of her essence. He told me everything, each and every word that Eve threw out of her mouth, which assured me that she hated me from the core. My beloved sister believed that Steve would be stupid if he married me, calling me an ugly toad. All the joy and happiness that was present tarnished in no time. My sister had ruined my wedding, as that is what she has always been good at, running things to her own advantage. It was pretty evident that Eve was desperate and her intentions were clearly fallacious. Her chance of seducing him to betray me and marry her instead was clearly shocking. Steve, being loyal to me, denied her proposal and left her alone in the room, which brought a sense of satisfaction. I was shattered to realize that someone from my own family would go to such an extent. I became the most miserable at such a happy time of my life. Seeing me this way, Steve assured me that he was not going anywhere and that I do not have to worry, as he only loved me and he would never choose a woman like Eve. Despite his reassurance, I couldn't help but think, what did I do to deserve this? I could not simply let go of the fact that this had happened. Eve's words scraped through my heart and my ears. I felt that nothing else could go wrong than this. I looked at Eve and I saw no guilt in her eyes, only a frozen gaze which gave a sense of how different we were. Each and every argument that we had all our lives, all of them made sense now, even the ones that I once considered to be irrelevant. I felt a sense of heat in me. It was the anger that was piling up inside that did not want Eve to destroy the essence of my wedding. With each minute passing, I gathered myself back together, as I was determined not to be affected by anyone else. This was the moment where I felt that I was at my lowest. Even after having good social support, I felt numb and did not know what to do next, as this involved family as well. That's why I am here writing down all these feelings, because I don't know what else to do. My wedding is in 2 days, and I am scared that Eve might try to ruin it. I'll appreciate any suggestions you guys can give me as to what I can do next. Oh my god, OP, what is happening to you is so sad. A wedding is one of the biggest days in any woman's life, and you must be pretty excited for that. But to have your own sister ruin it for you just 2 days before your wedding? That must be really hard. I just suggest that you keep a calm head about this and focus on your wedding rather than worrying about your sister. Hope you enjoy your wedding without any trouble. I get that what your sister did was horrible. There's no way I am justifying her actions, but honestly, it kinda seems like she has been the victim since she was young, as you got all the attention as a kid. And from what you told people usually left her, that must have been hard for her. And people seem to hold on to the trauma and do crazy things. So instead of pinning her as an evil vamp on the internet, you might try to understand what trauma led your sister to take such drastic action. Update. Hey everyone! There is still 1 day to go for the wedding, and I am still in a state of confusion about what can be done to put an end to all of that. Everyone here, Steve, Mom, Dad, are sad, and there is no more wedding excitement left within us. There is no way my anger is going to come down to an equilibrium that quickly. Previously, as I had mentioned, yesterday Eve tried to sabotage my wedding by convincing Steve to marry her instead of me, as she was the better one as well as pretty. That was the exact moment I felt the most miserable and helpless, but nothing was clear to me. I tried talking to my parents, but instead of supporting me, they asked me to reconcile with Eve by talking things out, as if that was going to help. I should have been happy, as it was the day I had been waiting for, but due to Eve's actions, all of it came down to something that no one was expecting. Even with this entire scenario and a pile of emotions, Eve was not ready to let go of her stubbornness and apologize. Rather, she made this all about herself by claiming that I was nothing in front of her and that she has always been the prettier one. The idea of reconciliation suggested by our parents did not seem good enough for any of us, as even after so much damage that had been caused by her, they still had a hope that everything was going to be fine. It seemed as if they were clashing against my idea of how to make things right and to play fair in the evil game started by my beloved sister. After all that had happened, Eve had no guilt about what she did, only taking me back to the time when she used to carry out her evil activities, which served as a reminder that nothing was going to change. Everybody aware of what had happened that day was in silent mode, and there was a sense of disappointment. The only person who was not disappointed was Eve, as she took pride in what she had done. The entire day, I kept wondering, which also kept me awake at night, what I should do next. I just have a day to come up with something. But what could I do, that to a day prior? I do have a plan, but I am not sure if I can pull it off in one day. What do you all suggest? It is pretty obvious that OP's sister has always been the problematic child, as well as an individual, as the people from other social surroundings were never satisfied with her actions. Any person would have felt this way, the way OP, Steve, and Sarah did. It feels terrible to be betrayed by someone you trust only in the worst way possible, but I think OP's parents should have paid more attention to Eve's doings, or else she would have never been in the place and the entire scenario would have never even taken place. I think that OP should straight up confront Eve in front of everyone so that she understands what she has been doing to her all these years, so that she can humiliate no one ever again. But I guess we just have to see what the OP does next. Update 2. Revenge. I finally got my revenge and it feels amazing. It has been 4 days since the wedding and I am relieved like never before. The wedding went well and I did come up with a good plan. Steve and I are glad that our wedding day was as good as we had expected. I am still processing all that has happened, although the support that you all have shown, and of course my family, has been great. I am trying to come out of that day effectively, though I have to say, it was not easy. Continuing with my last post, and of course after giving it a thought, I decided to teach my younger sister a life lesson. I came with a big plan a day before my wedding. As I had mentioned earlier, Eve had a number of problematic relationships, and the most common thing among them was the men involved always ended up leaving her due to her behavior and humiliation they had to face. How do I know all of this, you may ask? I have been in touch with Sarah, Eve's ex-best friend, whom she exploited at a college farewell party. She was as agonized as I was. I decided not to let Eve spoil my wedding day, so I was determined to teach her a lesson. Eve had a couple of relationships in the past, maybe 6 or 7, and I got in touch with all her ex-boyfriends and invited them to the wedding, and she had no knowledge about this. On the same day, I believe during the evening brunch, the ex-boyfriends showed up. I met them before anyone else and explained everything to them, basically what Eve had done. The major twist was that all of them showed up with their current partners. That day had been troublesome for all of us, and I, in particular, was consumed with emotions. There was a deep sense of resentment against whose actions had ruined everything, not only the present day, but also her series of relationships. Although I had always wanted to confront Eve, I never had the courage to do so. But today, Finally, I wanted to burst out as I could not take what had happened. I wanted peace and put an end to Eve's evil actions. As I stepped inside the wedding venue, I could see Eve standing at one corner, not being aware of what was going to come. I could not help but think about all the mean things that she had said to me, all the humiliation that persisted along with it. It made me furious. All her ex-boyfriends entered the wedding hall with their current girlfriends, leaving everyone in disbelief. I could sense fear in Eve and a sense of revenge in her ex-boyfriends. She was beyond shocked. Her expression said it all. All the ego that had destroyed her personality came crippling down her face because of what she had witnessed in front of her eyes. It seemed as if this was something she feared the most and did not want to confront it at all. Eve did not take this well. She looked at me with a hint of terror as if she was going to beat me to death or something. But I was totally determined to confront her instead or remain silent in the moment. I felt a sense of power as if she got nothing on me and now the situation was completely in my hands. In all these years, for the first time ever, I felt a sense of control over her and assured that now she was helpless and could not do anything to put me down. Looking at Eve in such a vulnerable moment, I never realized that she had such a side to herself. She turned to our parents for support, but even they could not do anything about it. In particular, as I remembered, I gathered each and every piece of courage left in me to stand up straight to Eve, as this was the only opportunity that I was left with, realizing that what I was going to say was going to be extremely deep, perhaps profound than ever before. The moment I asked Eve why did all her boyfriends leave her, I realized that my voice cracked a bit due to nervousness. The accusations barged in all of a sudden. After gathering all the guts, I faced Eve by asking her why her boyfriends dumped her despite her being so pretty. Mark, her second boyfriend and the most genuine of them all, decided to come forward and speak up. He said, "She lost me the day she insulted my mother for working 2 jobs to support our family, financially by calling her a scavenger. I hate you, Eve. Are you listening to me? I hate you." Marcus, the other boyfriend, insulted Eve by calling her ugly from the inside and how she looked like a fat clown, causing a big laugh in the hall. Eve could not take this and ran out of the hall sobbing. She did not say anything, but she just ran out and did not utter a single word. Eve left and I realized that now no one had the authority to exert control upon me or humiliate me for what I am or I was. Sometimes it is us who has to take a stand to teach a lesson, or no one else will. Eve learned her lesson in the most difficult and humiliating way, but I believe it happened for the good. I saw guilt in my parents' eyes as they never stood up to Eve, or this would not have happened in the first place. As all the chaos and tension came down to a balance, I was ready to be the happy bride again and walk down the aisle. But this time only with a sense of pride, as justice, which had taken long enough, was finally served. Do you think Eve deserved a chance to justify herself or even speak up for herself? Did she deserve a second chance? Although OP did manage to put Eve down to some extent, the younger one still did not seem to submit to what she did wrong. All she was concerned about was that she had always been the better one and she did not care about what anyone thought. But OP did manage to pull a strong move where she took her revenge in the most wisdom-oriented manner. Eve got the taste of her own doings in the most crooked way possible. That is, by getting humiliated in front of all of her ex-boyfriends and their current girlfriends, and of course in front of all the guests who did not expect Eve to be this way. I'm not gonna lie, but it was kinda satisfying that she finally got what she deserved. Let's just hope she doesn't create any problems for OP in the future. Update 3. So it has been a month since my last post and so much has happened. As you can tell, this one is a major update. Since the last time we saw Eve, I will say it has been great as it is more peaceful around us. Last night, I was reading all your comments and opinions, and most of them are in favor of the fact that Eve left for good. Personally, I feel the same. Steve has been supportive throughout, and we have been helping each other to overcome what had happened. After Eve left, I thought everyone would go silent, but instead, the excitement of the wedding day remained and we went ahead with the rituals. Obviously, I cannot eliminate what had happened, but whatever it was, Eve deserved it. I still remember as she was leaving the hall, I felt as if she had realized her mistake in the best way possible and felt humiliated in front of so many people. Since that day, there have been a number of changes. Steve and I finally decided to shift to another city for occupational responsibilities. Since the wedding day, we have not heard anything from Eve, nor are we aware of her whereabouts. I feel nothing but a sense of pride as all my life I had always been humiliated by Eve, and right now, she was the one standing alone. I actually thought Eve would have never let this go so easily, as disappearing is not very likely of her, but oh well. I'm going to start a new job soon, and I am very excited about it. Thank you to everyone who sent in good wishes for my wedding and supporting us throughout. Your comments really meant a lot to us. Without those, I would never come out of that situation. After the wedding, I did think that facing Eve after all that happened would not be easy, as it was her and she would have done anything to go against me and take revenge, but surprisingly, that was not the case. Eve has left town forever without leaving any trace. We got this information from her previous workplace, but we do not know where she went. Some say she has left the country, and some say otherwise. We are not sure because we are not in touch anymore. None of us have contacted each other in a very long time, and I honestly feel that it is never going to happen again. Although, due to all that had piled up in me, I was not affected that much by Eve's departure, but I think my mom is not doing well with it. Though, she would never say it, but I know for a reason that she has been affected the most in all of this. She has been keeping herself busy with all the household work, but it is not easy. Me and Dad, we have been helping her get out of this and making her accept that whatever Eve did was wrong and cannot be mended. Eventually, after some time passed, everything settled and we had moved on with our lives. But there are certain moments during the day which make me remember what had happened. Steve and I both feel having Eve around was nothing more than chaos due to all the problems that she had created, making it evident that she was never the right person to be around. It has taken a long time for us to move on, but I believe it happened for the good. I keep up with my parents every single day so that they do not feel her absence, and I make sure to visit them once in a while. I don't know if Eve ever realized her mistakes or not, and I guess I am okay not knowing, cause honestly, I could get used to the peace of not having her troublesome presence around me. Now I can just focus on my blissful married life. Thank you to everyone who made it till here and supported me throughout this roller coaster of emotions. Damn, OP. This was indeed one hell of a roller coaster ride for you and all of us supporting you here. And I want you to know that despite what some people are saying here in the comments section about how you should be feeling guilty of what you did the right thing. Eve needed to be taught a lesson after the move she pulled, and I guess you gave her the perfect one. I hope she just stays away now and you guys can lead a peaceful life. This seriously pisses me off. You took your petty revenge and your sister left the country because of that and you're okay with it? Like, how? You've said it earlier that you cared about your sister despite of her behavior issues, and now you just let her go like that and are even happy with it? I'd say it's just plain hypocrisy. You should have searched for her at least. OP honestly did the right thing once and for all to teach her younger sister Eve a good lesson that was much needed. She indeed gave her the taste of her own medicine, which frowned upon Eve in the best way possible, which led her to disappear. All that, I believe, did turn out to be the best for everyone, as each and everyone present at the wedding had something or the other thing to say. Not only for Eve, but this was an eye-opening incident for OP's parents as well, who never stood up to their own daughter despite having seen so much all their life. On the other hand, I also believe that Eve, as to when she asked out Steve, should have at least owned up to what she did instead of just running away like that. But I guess all's well that ends well, right?